The boy's eyes have rolled back to the whites. The bowl is empty. And nothing is happening. Chief Kahn's hand settles on his axe. You have 3 minutes. The whole tribe was watching him fail. That was how it would be remembered, if it went wrong. Not the Thunderjaw, not the 400 kilograms of meat curing on the racks, not the man whose life he had bought with poison the day before. They would remember the Exile kneeling in the dirt over a dying boy with a bowl of purple liquid in his hands, and nothing happening. And they would remember Chief Kahn's axe coming off his belt. And they would tell their children about the morning the soft skin's tricks ran out. The dying hunter was perhaps 18. His skin had gone the grey-green of meat left too long, and the dark thread stood up beneath it from the double puncture on his forearm, climbing toward the shoulder. His breath came in shallow, irregular sips. His limbs had begun to spasm, small involuntary jerks that the paralysis would soon silence for good. Shadowfang venom, neurotoxic. The paralysis is moving from the extremities inward. When it reaches the muscles he breathes with, he stops breathing. Based on progression, you have less than 2 hours, and that is generous. 2 hours. Arthur had spent the first of them in the jungle's wet edge, with Edda and Boran at his back, and 2 more hunters behind them, with orders to put a spear through him if he ran. He had not run. There was nowhere to run to that was not also a place that would kill him, and besides, somewhere in the last week the wanting to had drained out of him and left only the wanting to be proven right. Every plant he needed grew along the boundary. System had warned him of the night before. The ragged seam where the camp's safe ground gave way to the deep dark the tribe did not enter. Twice the interface had flagged old Stalker spoor, and Arthur had frozen mid-step with his heart in his throat, while the 2 hunters muttered behind him that the soft skin jumped at shadows. He had let them mutter. He had learned that fear was only information, and the information here was that he was walking through the larder of a thing that had once measured him for its jaws. The red-stemmed vine grew near a fallen log, half drowned in ferns, its stalks unmistakable as fresh blood against the green. He cut 3 lengths, low and clean, while System counted off the safe ones and marked in a pulsing warning red the near-identical vine beside it, whose sap would have made the boy's death come faster instead of slower. The blue-spotted mushroom hid in a damp crevice between 2 slick rocks, and beside it, close enough that their caps nearly touched, grew the deadly yellow-capped cousin that stopped hearts. Boran, impatient, reached for the nearer cluster. Arthur caught his wrist without thinking, the grip of a man stopping a hand from closing on a coal. The old hunter went rigid. He looked at the small pale fingers locked around his scarred forearm, and then at the innocent yellow caps an inch from where his own hand had been going, and the colour went slowly out of his face. He pulled his arm free without a word, and let Arthur do the picking after that, and the silence held more weight than any thanks. The inner bark of the weeping tree came last, at the stream's edge, where the trunk wept a clear viscous sap that caught the morning light like slow glass. Arthur scraped it into a folded leaf with the edge of a stone blade, working fast, because the boy's 2 hours had already become 1, and System would not let him forget the number ticking down behind his eyes. 3 components, each one useless alone, each one part of an answer he could not have reached without the voice behind his eyes, and would never, in front of these people, admit he had not always carried. 3 components, he had told Edda on the way back, mostly to hear his own voice stay level. Each one nothing on its own. Together, prepared right, an antidote. Our healer tried the red vine, Boren had said. It did nothing. Not alone, Arthur had answered, and not prepared correctly. Now he prepared it correctly, with the entire wolf-tooth tribe ringed around him in a silence that pressed on his shoulders like a hand. Crush the vine first. Extract the juice. 3 parts water. Arthur ground it to crimson, and measured the water by eye, while system corrected him in fractions only he could hear. The mushroom now. Dry heat to activate the enzymes. Do not burn it. He laid the caps on a flat stone at the fire's edge and turned them with a stick until the blue spots darkened to a bruised purple. Combine the mushroom extract with the vine. The weeping sap last, or it curdles. The antidote came together as a thick purple liquid that caught the light like something alive. Arthur held it up and made himself look at it critically, as if he were inspecting a weld, as if his hands were not shaking. Administer orally. His jaw is locking. You will have to force it. Arthur knelt beside the boy. The jaw had indeed begun to seize, the muscles standing out like cords, and Arthur pried it open with his thumb against the back teeth and poured the antidote in small amounts, waiting for the throat to work, for the reflex to pull each mouthful down. The boy's eyes had rolled back to the whites. The smell of sickness came off him in waves. Arthur emptied the bowl. Nothing happened. The murmur of the tribe rose, low and ugly, the sound a crowd makes when it begins to doubt. Across the circle, Chief Kahn's hand drifted to the stone axe at his belt and rested there. System. Arthur did not move his lips. Tell me it's working. The compound has to bind to the toxin already in his blood before it can pull it loose. That takes time. Approximately 5 minutes before any visible change. There is nothing wrong. There is only waiting. 5 minutes. With Kahn's hand on his axe, 5 minutes was a geological age. Arthur kept his face still, the way he had once kept it still in rooms full of men who wanted his design to fail so theirs could win. He stood, slowly, and met Kahn's eyes. It needs time, he said, loud enough to carry. The venom is strong. The cure has to find it before it can fight it. Kahn's eyes narrowed to slits. How much time? 5 minutes, less if the dose holds. The chief's face went dark. You have 3. 3 minutes against a 5-minute bind. 2 minutes short. There was no version of the math that worked, and the only thing he had ever had against men like Kahn was the willingness to stand inside the math that did not work and refuse to be the first to flinch. 3, he agreed. He knelt back down beside the boy, because the worst thing he could do was let Kahn see him count. The seconds went by like stones dropped down a well. The fire popped. Somewhere a child began to cry and was hushed. A fly landed on the boy's grey lips and Arthur waved it away. He watched the chest. Only the chest. The shallow rise, the longer fall, the rise that came a beat too late. Sweat ran into his eyes and he did not wipe it. Panic was a tax on a mind that needed all its money. So he spent nothing. He knelt and breathed and waited and let the well swallow its stones. Boren stood at the edge of the circle with his arms folded and his face unreadable. Edda had set herself again, a half step off Arthur's shoulder, watching the crowd and not the boy, watching for the first man who decided to act before the chief did. 1 minute. Hold. A minute was a year. Kahn's hand had not left the axe. Then the boy's breathing changed. The shallow gasps deepened. The twitching in his limbs slowed, then stilled, and for one terrible heartbeat, Arthur thought it was the end. The paralysis taking the chest, the suffocation beginning. Respiration deepening, heart rate stabilizing. The bind is holding. He is turning, Arthur. Colour crept back into the grey-green face. The dark threads beneath the skin paled and began to recede toward the wound. The cords stood down in the boy's jaw, and his chest rose and fell in the long, even rhythm of a man simply asleep. He heals, Edda breathed, and the word ran around the circle like fire through dry grass. The boy's eyes fluttered open. They wandered, found the canopy, found the ring of faces, found Arthur kneeling over him. "What?" he managed, his voice a thread. Arthur slid an arm behind his shoulders and helped him sit. "A shadow fang took you in the night," he said. "You're going to live." The tribe broke into noise, 300 voices loosed at once. Boran stared at the recovering boy with naked shock. Even Kahn's stone face cracked, just for a moment, into something that was not contempt. Arthur stood and faced the chief. "Your test," he said. "It's finished." Kahn studied him for a long moment, and the silence between them held more weight than all the noise around it. "Not finished," the chief said at last. "You have shown knowledge of poisons. We asked for wisdom." He swept one massive arm at the gathered tribe. "Tell us, Exile, what wisdom do you offer beyond clever tricks with leaves?" This was the door, and Arthur knew it, and he walked through it. "Knowledge is not a trick," he said, and pitched his voice to carry to the back of the crowd. "The poison that nearly killed this boy is the poison that saved your hunting party yesterday. The same hand that takes a life can give one back. That is not a trick. That is understanding. And understanding is the only thing that has ever lifted men out of the mud." He looked at Kahn and let the next words land slow. "I do not offer you strength. You have strength. And strength dies under the foot of a thunderjaw. I offer you the thing that killed the thunderjaw. I offer the wolf tooth, the means to stop being prey." Something shifted behind Kahn's eyes. Not warmth, a calculation. The cold arithmetic of a man weighing what a thing was worth against what it might cost him later. "Tomorrow," Kahn said, "you will show us more of this wisdom, something we can hold, something we can use." He turned to the tribe and raised his voice. "The exile stays. For now." The crowd loosened and broke apart into its mourning, and Arthur felt the iron band around his chest ease by a single notch. Heart rate decreasing. "You did not die today. I find I prefer it when you do not die." His hands had begun to shake now that no one needed them steady. He pressed them flat against his thighs and watched the tribe rearrange itself around the fact of his survival. The whispers turning, the eyes that had read his scarred face as a death sentence, now reading it as a question. He had not won them. He had bought a single day, the way a man with no coin buys bread on a promise, and the debt would come due, with interest. Underneath the awe was the older thing, the fear of what they did not understand, and Vaughan's flat, hateful stare had told him exactly where that fear would gather and curdle. Edda found him at the quiet edge of camp and crouched beside him. "That was well done," she said. "But understand, Kahn is not convinced. He is interested. The two are not the same, and interest does not last. The day his interest ends, he will not remember the boy you saved. He will remember only that you frightened him, and frightened men with axes do not need a second reason." "I know." Arthur watched the tribe move through its tasks. "Tomorrow, I show him something he can hold, something that makes me worth more alive than dead." He paused. "So, what do I build?" "The tribe values what it can grip and swing. Stone breaks, stone dulls. The logical next step is metal, copper specifically. With copper tools, every other thing you wish to build becomes possible. Better shelter, better weapons, defenses against what hunts you in the dark. There is one obstacle. Copper melts at 1085 degrees. The hottest fire in this camp reaches perhaps half that." Arthur's gaze drifted to the tribe's cook fires, low and orange and useless for what he needed. "So I don't use their fire," he murmured. "I build a better one." Boron came past, slowed and stopped. "The poison knowledge," he said. "The cure. Where does a soft skin learn such things?" Arthur met his eyes. "I've always known things. I just needed a reason to remember them." "You are not the man we cut from the tribe," Borun said. It was not a compliment. It was almost an accusation. "People change," Arthur said, "when the alternative is dying." Borun grunted and turned to go, and over his shoulder he said the most useful thing anyone had said to Arthur all day. "Kahn will test you again. He will keep testing you until you fail or until you are too valuable to kill. Be sure which one comes first." Survival was not a wall he could build once and stand behind. It was a thing he would have to earn again every few days, forever. Each new wonder buying him only the time to produce the next. It should have been despairing. Strangely, it was not. It was simply a problem, and problems had shapes, and shapes could be worked. "System," he said quietly. "I need a copper deposit. Close. Something I can reach and work before Kahn's patience runs out. Run the survey. Survey complete. There is a viable deposit. Greenish ore, surface exposed, more than enough for a first smelt. It lies 1.2 kilometers into the deep jungle, Arthur, outside the cleared ground, past the tree line the tribe does not cross after dark. I would note that the only catalogued apex predator in this region, the one with the green eyes, hunts a territory whose boundary runs directly through that deposit. I cannot promise the ore and the Stalker are not in the same place." Arthur looked northeast, toward the green wall, where the thing that had nearly eaten him in a cave a week and a lifetime ago still walked its rounds in the dark. Tomorrow he would have to walk into its house and take what he needed out of it. "Of course it does," he said softly, and the jungle, as if it had heard him, went very quiet.